Hello there, welcome back to my views and news. First news story is from Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, where posters are being displayed in support of Fano. Last night, unknown men pasted several messages in Addis Ababa in two zones. We have details for you. Does Fano have support in Addis Ababa? Secondly, when Tigray war broke out in November 2020, we saw that US was quick to intervene. US was quick to condemn the human rights abuses in Tigray, and US appointed a special envoy. Jeffrey Feltman was appointed as special envoy, and I think he was sent to the Horn of Africa, and he met with the leaders here. US tried to put an end to the war. US put pressure on Ethiopian government. This time US is silent. Around 2 days ago, US State Department press briefing was held. There a journalist asked a question about US silence on what is happening in Amhara. We have a clip for you. What was the response from State Department spokesperson about US silence on the issue in the Amhara region of Ethiopia? Firstly, viewers, does Fano have support in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital? Fano factions believe that they have support. I talked to some of people who are close to Fano, who have been developing strategies. They are close to Fano, and they believe that final blow will be dealt to Ethiopian PM Abiy's government by Addis Ababans, Fano supporters in Addis Ababa. They believe that this resistance movement in the Amhara region has several phases. In the first phase, local level, city level government were made dysfunctional. Then regional government was made dysfunctional, and then this instability will creep into Addis Ababa. And those who are already in Addis Ababa, those who support Fano faction, they'll play a key role. I think government knows that too, that Fano fighters hope that they'll get support. That is why government has launched a crackdown on Amharas in Addis Ababa. Those Amharas who have links with Fano, who could be potential recruits for Fano, they are being arrested. And hundreds have been arrested within the last 4 to 5 days. After the imposition of state of emergency, security forces intensified crackdown on pro-Fano elements in Addis Ababa. And that is why around 5 days ago, I think Addis Ababa government imposed ban on use of motorbikes. And today the ban has been extended indefinitely. So there are fears that Fano could try to penetrate Addis Ababa, or it could try to use the already existing elements in Addis Ababa against the government. Fano working quietly, silently in Addis Ababa, but last night some messages were displayed, pamphlets were pasted in some areas, on walls, in markets, pamphlets in support of Fano fighters. You can see a few on your screen. Reportedly, these messages were displayed in Piazza and Saris areas. Writing is in support of Fano, like Viva to Amhara Fano, death to prosperity, we stand with Amhara Fano. This is the type of messages which are being displayed in Addis Ababa. It's difficult in present circumstances to support Fano in Addis Ababa because Addis Ababa it has immense presence of security forces, not just uniform personnel but intelligence elements too. For months, I think Addis Ababa police, federal police, NIS have been making preparations that there could be attempt from the Amhara region by some groups to sneak into Addis Ababa. So they have been making their preparations. It's difficult to start any anti-government movement in Addis Ababa against the government. But obviously, Fano supporters, they are displaying messages because they want to get public support. Maybe at some point, if entire Amhara is captured by Fano, at some point we could see activation of Fano's support by Fano factions in Addis Ababa. That could happen if Fano managed to make Amhara regional government totally dysfunctional. We are seeing a counteroffensive in Amhara. ENDF pushing Fano out of town cities. If ENDF fails, then we could see the impact of what is happening in Amhara on Addis Ababa. Secondly, viewers, people are comparing the unrest in Amhara and war on Tigray. They say US was quick to intervene in Tigray in terms of diplomatic intervention. US appointed a special envoy. It asked Ethiopian government to stop the war. It accused the government of human rights abuses. It imposed sanctions on some it threatened to impose sanctions on some Ethiopian individuals. It warned Eritrea to this time. No statement from the US while thousands are involved in fighting and hundreds have died reportedly. Well, I have a clip for you. This question was asked at a US State Department press briefing. What did US State Department spokesperson say? We have a clip for you. Before that, at this point of time, we cannot compare Tigray war and unrest in Amhara. Tigray war was a full-fledged war. Involvement of Eritrean military, and Tigray had managed to form a military too. Regional forces were involved too. That was a full-scale war. In Amhara, what we are seeing, it has potential of turning into a big conflict. But we cannot say this is Tigray-like situation. Though, yes, intervention should happen in terms of engagement, in terms of dialogue. TPLF remained in power for decades, so they had good connections with the US lawmakers, US lobbying firms. They successfully internationalized the conflict in Tigray. Amhara diaspora community trying to internationalize the issue. So far, it's in the initial phase. If this conflict goes on, if Amhara government becomes totally dysfunctional, if ENDF's offensive fails, then we could see more international interest in the conflict in Amhara. That is why maybe we're seeing slow response from international community, though Antony Blinken talked to PM Abiy 3 days ago. The two discussed situation in Amhara, Oromia, and implementation of Pretoria deal. Overall, no separate statement from the US asking Ethiopian government to resolve the conflict in Amhara. But I think in the background, efforts could be underway because Ethiopia is in talks with IMF, World Bank to get big loans, like loans of a few billion US dollars. And I think US is going to put in place some restrictions, some conditions for the approval of these loans. The conditions could include resolution of conflicts in Amhara and Oromia. IMF could demand the explanation too, because a failed country cannot pay back loans. I wouldn't say Ethiopia is a failed country, but if this conflict goes on, if Tigray is drawn in, and if Ola steps up its offensive too, you can see a national level crisis, which could be a matter of concern for the entire region. How will IMF get its loans back? So that is why there are things ongoing in the background. Overall, US so far largely silent. A clip for you from US State Department press briefing. A question was asked about US response to the conflict in Amhara. The question was not directly addressed by the State Department spokesperson. He just said that the two countries were in touch. Secretary of State had talked to Antony Blinken, but no word on any active US intervention, diplomatic intervention to resolve the conflict in Amhara.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. My name is Mesfin Bezu from TG Ethiopian, and my question is about the current conflict.
Welcome to the briefing room. I'm not sure. I'm sure you've been here before, not under my tenure, my short tenure.
I've been out here, but thank you for welcoming us. My question is about the current conflict in Ethiopia. Recently, when the Ethiopian government moved to dissolve or disarm the Amhara Special Forces, or known as Fano, tension has begun between the two, the Ethiopian government and the Amhara Special Forces. What we hear from Ethiopia right now, Matt, it is very, very bad news. Very bad news. Instead of finding a diplomatic solution, Ethiopia is now facing another civil war. What is the State Department or the Biden administration is doing to help averting another catastrophic civil war in Ethiopia?
So the United States is committed to the unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Ethiopia, and we seek peace, prosperity, and stability in Ethiopia to build upon the long-standing, strong partnership between our governments and our people. And I will add that the Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Ambassador Mike Hammer, was recently in the region and met with Ethiopian government officials and with the Tigray Interim Regional Administration on continued implementation of the recent agreement. He discussed progress and priorities, including transnational justice and accountability efforts, as well as disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programming, and we will continue to do so.
Mr. Miller, I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished yet.
Okay,
I have a lot of respect for you and the State Department, and I have not.
You just met me. I appreciate that.
I know, but I didn't ask you a question about Tigray. It's already passed.
Yeah.
Now there is another civil war is going on in Ethiopia between the Amhara Special Forces and the Ethiopian government. I know that the State Department keeps saying that we are gravely concerned while many people are dying. That is not acceptable. The State Department needs to act. As we well know, you just mentioned, during the Tigray war has caused hundreds of thousands of deaths, mass displacement, famine, and human rights violations. Despite such terrible war, the State Department was saying we are greatly concerned before the State Department sent its special envoy to the Horn of Africa, who helped, I give a credit, who helped to bring peace between the Ethiopian and the Tigray forces. And now,
can we get to the question?
Yeah. Okay, let me get to the question. Does the State Department need to wait hundreds of thousands of people to die, to suffer, or to be displaced before the State Department send its special envoy to the Horn of Africa to bring peace between the Ethiopian government and the Amhara Special Forces, Fano? Not Tigray right now. It's a different situation in Ethiopia.
Yeah, I understand. I will say that we remain engaged. The Secretary just spoke with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia on Friday, and we will continue to remain engaged both at the secretarial level and at other levels in the